This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you know, but I'm going to tell you anyway, that's because I make it that way. And after our guest last week, so the minute I wake up and open my eyes, I've automatically started to think it's groovy. I no longer wait for my feet to hit the ground. It's just, I know if I wake up, it's going to be a groovy day, and that's the way it is. Things might change, things might happen, but I can always think back and say, hey, I started out groovy. All I got to do is maybe take a break, think differently, get a different perspective, and 99.9% of the time it turns around. If not, eventually it will. I just have to wait long enough. As always, well, I want to welcome everybody to Life Mastery Radio. This talk show brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. And we have an amazing guest today with an amazing book. And I guarantee that we're going to blow your socks off. We'll see at the end of the show if that didn't happen. As always, I have my amazing, today's word of the day is amazing. I have my amazing co-host, Jackie Bailey. Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Hello. It is amazing, right? We can make it amazing. I'm looking out at the beautiful sunshine. It's winter, but it's one of those beautiful days in winter where the sun is shining and it's crisp and brisk outside, and the leaves on the ground are crunchy. I love crunchy leaves. So it's one of those great days.
Do you think, so Jackie and I are in the great PNW, that would be the Pacific Northwest. You think winter has come? Old man winter? Is it old man winter, or what is it? Is winter come early?
It feels that way, doesn't it? It's like we went from 70 degrees to 40 degrees overnight.
No, I was thinking about that too. And we've experienced the elements all within like 30 days, right? We had fire, we had wind, power was knocked out for a while. We had torrential downpours, so there's water. And well, I'll have to search around for earth a little bit.
Yeah, well, leaves are falling. Is that earth? You got the autumn.
That's why you're my amazing co-host, because you always back me up when I lose my train of thought. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So Tell us, how are things cooking at the Speak Feed Lead Project?
Well, we are coming upon Thanksgiving season of gratitude. And therefore, we are thinking about the reasons that we have to be grateful for our voice. Many of you don't know, I work with young people, ages 10 and up, and empower their voices with public speaking and leadership skills. We are the Speak Feed Lead Project. We are a nonprofit. And as we approach this time of gratitude, we are holding an event the day after American Thanksgiving. It's going to be called Speaksgiving. And it's opportunity. It's a 4-hour live streaming event where our students are going to be spotlighted, and anyone who wants to come on will be spotlighted as well. And they can talk about why they're grateful to have a voice and how they are speaking up and speaking out to the world. So it will be called Speaksgiving. You can find it on our website if you go to speakfeedlead.org and then click on the link that says Giving Tuesday, because it's in conjunction with Giving Tuesday, which is on November 29th. But Speaksgiving will be a few days before that. So come and join us on stage.
So if somebody that looks like me as a little kid shows up, you won't blow my cover, right?
It's not just for little kids, but you are perfectly in that ballpark with your
I
personality.
guess so. Look on my
But no, anyone can join. It's just that our students, when they come on, they're going to be given priority to speak out. But everyone who's there will have opportunity to talk about
very cool. And
the way that they're grateful for that.
Again, they can find out more at speakfeedlead.org.
Yep, absolutely. And go to the Giving Tuesday tab and you'll see all the information about that.
And if I just want to remind everybody, if you have a little one, a little human, and you think they have, you know what? I'm just going to say this. All little humans have a voice. And what Jackie does is shows them how to get that voice out of their heart and into the universe, basically. And she has students on summits all over the world, and they're being requested from some of these summit hosts, and it is truly an amazing experience. Can you imagine being a 10, 12-year-old kid and getting international, worldwide exposure, talking about your
messages? Yeah, I mean, they know what they want to say. It's just that they've never been given the opportunity before. And so it takes a little bit of weaseling out of them to say, hey, if this is what you want to talk about, then let's craft this in a way that's going to be really powerful for the audience.
Jackie shows them how to do it, and they
have it. It's already there. Yeah.
They take right off, and they just, I mean, the return on investment for a younger person is, well, it will last them the rest of their life. And some of these kids I watch that Jackie showed me, I'm thinking, the first thing that comes to my mind is that kid's the next president, or he's a future president of the United States, right? I mean, he's already got a jump on how to communicate, how to express his feelings, how to express his thoughts and ideas. That's turbocharged button right there.
Absolutely.
That's into life.
Real good moments.
Cool. Well, I want to remind our listeners today that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com, whichever one you prefer. And any links that we talk about will be right there. Jackie will write a blog post about today's show, and I'll post links to the YouTube videos, so everything is right there on Life Mastery Radio. If you want to stay informed, sign up for our newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter every week. It goes out, highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and of course her blog post about the most recent show. It's pretty cool. While you're on that website, check out Jackie and I's book. Jackie wrote a book, and then I said, well, if she could do it, I could do it. And I wrote this one, 6 Keys to Life Mastery. It's a really quick read, and it's just 6 key elements that I discovered in my life, late in my life. And I thought, if I was younger and had these keys, I would unlock so many doors. So there you go. And Jackie's book is right behind her, Self-Centered
Leadership, and
she's got other stuff
got
too.
No Problem Parenting out there as well, helping you to learn how to speak to your kids in a way that allows them to have their voice.
Well, something else that's pretty cool that we should mention is you're coaching high schoolers for entrance into college too, as well.
Yeah, in fact, I just worked with a couple of kids in the last 2 weeks. One is on her way to Brown University, and in the application process, where she really wants to go to Brown, they require a 1-minute video. So we worked with her to help her craft a script of what she could say about herself and the experience that she's had in life. And then a videographer helped her to put that script into a video and add some images and other special effects. And brilliant, turned out brilliant.
That's pretty, isn't that pretty standard now? I mean, for acceptance?
It's getting to be, because what's really good now that's happening with colleges is they're putting less emphasis on the academics, which I think is, there was too much emphasis before and not enough emphasis on other things. And so I like that they're easing off on that. So now they really want to make sure that they're bringing kids in there who are prepared to have a good experience at college.
That's very cool.
And so they want to see a little bit more about who you are, what you like, and how well you speak and that kind of thing. So yeah,
maybe trying to curb the partying a little bit, huh? No, I'm just kidding.
Could be. It would be nice. That'd be a nice effect if that were the case.
All righty then. I think we have definitely did a little housekeeping, and now it's time for our amazing guest. And I think I have the intro, right, Jackie?
Mm-hmm.
Better have the intro, right? Our guest today is Seana Zelazo. Seana is a psychotherapist, intuitive channel, spiritual coach, mentor, and teacher. She is a licensed clinical social worker. My oldest daughter is she has her MSW. I don't know that she's licensed yet. Seana began her social work career in the end of life care as a hospice social worker before transitioning into private practice as a psychotherapist. For the last decade, Seana has focused on providing clarity and support as an intuitive channel, connecting with the higher realms to offer guidance, spiritual coaching, and mentorship. Trained in many healing modalities, Seana is also a former elite runner and two-time Olympic trials qualifier in the marathon, as well as a former competitive triathlete. That takes some amazing, endurance.
Stamina for sure.
Stamina. As a surfer today, Seana uses her relationship to sports as a medium to be sacred relationship with the temple of her body. And you can find out more at seanazelazo.com. She wrote an amazing book, and we're going to talk a little bit about that book today, I think. I know. It's called The Way of Inanna, a heroine's guide to living unapologetically. Seana, welcome to the show. How are you today, my friend?
I am so well. Thank you so much for the opportunity to connect in this way. I am so honored to be here, and I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. I scanned through your book. I watched some of the other podcasts that you were a guest on, and completely, and do I want to say enthralled or just hungry for more. And so now I kind of scanned your book. I'm going to read it totally because I have this fascination with ancient culture and what they believed and what they followed and guided. And that's where Inanna comes from. Is maybe you could give us a little bit of backstory about Inanna.
Absolutely. So Inanna is the Sumerian goddess of love and war. So she has many epitaphs. She also is known as the morning and evening star, which is the connection to Venus. She's known as the goddess of thunderstorms and rain, as the queen of heaven and earth. And her myth, the descent of Inanna, was the earliest really story of ascension. Precedes the story of Jesus's resurrection. And this was a myth that was uncovered in the ancient city of Nippur, which is near the modern day city of Baghdad. And it was written on clay tablets in cuneiform, like her other mythology, and pieced together and translated and really delivered as it was written. So it wasn't reinterpreted, it was translated. And that stands out in such a beautiful way, in the sense that we are able to read it today as it was written, without being filtered through an agenda or a different perspective. And her mythology is so profound and relatable. She is a goddess who truly insists on her physicality. So I find her a goddess who emphasizes that humanity is a doorway or a path to our divinity. So in that way, I find her a beautiful role model, and continuously offering through working with her intuitively, through connecting with her in a devotional way, and through reading her mythology, I find she gives us a path to ascension, to our highest evolutionary expression, and a path to a new way of living on the earth plane, which is really, she as the goddess of love is embodying unconditional love. And that's really the message we need right now.
Right. And the divine feminine, right? So maybe you could define that for us a little bit, as far as how it relates to Inanna and what her do I want to call it a teaching, or do we just call it a mythical understanding?
You call it whatever resonates with you. She is sort of what I would interpret as a goddess who would just say, make it your own. She doesn't like being limited. She doesn't like to be bound. And it's a way wherein, however it lands for you. And the way of Inanna is really your way. It's really the path of your own heart. And as such, whatever resonates for you, right? But her focus is to come back into your own heart, and you will find the way. So you can just,
right? That's a big part, is self-love. And
totally, absolutely. And the idea of bringing about transformation by beginning within, that's really central. So from the perspective of the divine feminine, she's definitely an embodiment of the divine feminine, and we need both, right? But feminine consciousness really is about unity. It is about compassion, unconditional love. It is not about having power over anything. So the divine feminine or feminine consciousness is not about having dominance over.
Control.
Yeah. It's about being in alignment, walking side by side with the divine masculine. And it's that focus on balance that is so a part of Inanna's teachings. So what I like to think of the seat of feminine consciousness is in our second chakra collectively, all of us, men and women, any way in which you identify. The second chakra holds our generative capacity, which is really the seat of feminine consciousness. So it's a reminder, and Inanna emphasizes the second chakra. There's a lot of ways in which her mythology is very vocal about the sacred feminine. She describes it as her holy vulva, and being in celebration of this. This is really about womb wisdom being more about, like I said, this reminder that we are all creators. And when we remember this, yes, exactly. And when we remember this, we can create with intention, and we step into the idea of feminine consciousness as a consciousness of responsibility. And that's really what she's coming forward to remind us of, to take responsibility, to cultivate and create from a place of love. So I'm a big fan of her work for all of the above reasons.
Well, you have an amazing story, and maybe you could briefly get us up to date with that too, because I think this all plays together. How you were brought to Inanna. Your mother passed away, and you went through all of that, and then sexual trauma occurred like within a week or two, I think. Yeah, maybe tell us about this story a little bit.
Absolutely. So Inanna is definitely a goddess of the death mysteries, and I have been I came in this life interested in end of life. Literally, as a little one, I was interested in near-death experiences and end of life. So, and her most well-known myth, the descent of Inanna, is one wherein she literally descends into the underworld, into the land of the unknown from which no one can return, and goes into her death, and then ascends through faith in herself. And so in my entry into this world, it's like I remember there was something so important to me about remembering this experience with the death mysteries and learning about them, to understand them as truly teachings about ascension, which kind of was, I guess, ignited in me as a little one. So when I was 19, my mother took her own life. And this was a focal point for me in the sense that it reminded me there was a deep desire in me to connect with empowerment and standing in our feminine power. And it was really the experience of my mother, this paradoxical experience wherein I saw the effects of what happens when we hold the wounding of being disempowered, and the wounding that led to her decision to take her own life certainly oriented me on my path to wanting to heal this and wanting to remind us all of ways to bring about that healing internally, which is one of the goals of this book, is to help us to heal, and to heal the collective second chakra, that house, that center of creativity, and to bring back feminine consciousness in a way wherein we see it has the answer by unifying and dissolving separation consciousness. So through the experience of grief that I went through with my mother's passing, and then to your point, a week later, I experienced, and as I detailed it in the book, I experienced a sexual trauma, a rape that happened, which also felt, of course, to the 19-year-old in me, was extremely traumatizing. But in retrospect, and after I found the mythology of Inanna, I came to see that these were my initiations. She goes through in the underworld. She comes to 7 gates in the underworld, which are like the 7 levels of her initiatory process. And at each gate, she's asked to remove one of her royal garments, which is symbolic of letting go. It's symbolic of this purification process. And she created a framework for me to understand challenge. When I began to look at these experiences from the lens of initiations, I was able to move from a disempowered experience to an empowered experience. And the fact that with the experience of my mom passing, it was like a heartbreak. So it was a wound that showed up in the heart chakra that I was forced to pay attention to and bring healing to. And it took a while. And certainly this violation that occurred to me, this sexual violation, was a wound that showed up in my second chakra. So I also saw this message conveyed through that experience that was very much like Inanna's. I was encouraged to heal these 2 centers. And this is something Inanna emphasizes. She really brings attention through the fact that she is goddess of love to the heart center, and her very overt celebration of her second chakra, of her holy vulva. This is her myths are deeply erotic and very different than we would perhaps expect. They're not shy, if you will, as a people. And this is a beautiful message for us to reclaim our sense of sensuality, sexuality, and to heal our generative center. So my personal experiences sort of, I would say, activated these 2 centers for me and made me, in essence, remember my own connection to Inanna. So when I found her a little bit later in my life, I could really see myself in her story. Yeah.
And so how did you find her, though? Is she a real person that lived, whom we have records of now, or, because you referred to it a few times as mythology, is she a representation of the divine feminine and not an actual person? So what have you learned in that regard?
I love that question so much, because again, it lends itself, she is all about giving ourselves permission to evolve, and her myths really speak to the plasticity of our evolutionary process, and that we can move and shift and evolve. And so you could say there's a desire on her part to be blurry in a bit of maybe deliberately. She has been described from scholars as being androgynous. And yet she really emphasizes her sense of feminine power. So there's a blurring of lines that occurs with Inanna. And so there are individuals that really resonate with the idea that the Anunnaki were individuals that came, or beings that came and were present on the earth plane. I don't touch that. I mean, she is an Anunnaki goddess. I leave that because I love the idea of it's up to you. How does she resonate for you? When I think of that notion of, in the work that I do intuitively, in being in connection with the higher realms, what I've come to realize is there's no difference between those that I'm connecting with in the here and now in the physical, and receiving that information from the non-physical or from non-ordinary states of reality. So I love that question so much, because you're really emphasizing what is so true about Inanna, which is this she emphasizes release, release, being bound. There's no, don't define me in any way. I am who I am, and I will change my mind, and I will evolve and continue to evolve. And I love how she, she's really, there's a big resurgence in her at this time, because she has such a power. And I think it's very, very applicable in the now. First of all, she's incredibly relatable in the sense that she really embodies her polarities, which we can all see in ourselves. She can be loving and angry at the same time. She's depicted quite a bit as being impatient, and yet she's unapologetically herself. And that is so refreshing for us as we kind of explore the shadow aspects of self, and truly understand what does it mean to be unconditionally loving. We have to integrate all aspects of ourselves and not deem some parts of ourselves acceptable and others, not. So she highlights this, but in part, she does this by saying, in essence, sort of like, you don't define me. I am who I am. So I love your question for this reason. It's however it resonates for you.
All right. Well, how did you discover this? Were you interested in history? Because I've never heard of the Sumerian people.
Yeah.
So are they real? Are they a real civilization that existed? And you mentioned Baghdad. So
yes.
Yeah. So tell me about how you found this out.
Sure, absolutely. And yes, ancient Sumer is the sort of the Fertile Crescent, the cradle of civilization. And this is where we had our first writing. In fact, there is a beautiful poet, high priestess and princess named Enidwana, who was literally is known as the first author to sign her name to her work. And she is from this area, and she was a high priestess of Inanna's father, who's Nana, the moon god. So she was a high priestess of Nana, but her heart belonged to Inanna. So she has 3 long poems that were written in cuneiform and on clay tablets that reveal the beauty of Inanna. So these people were so just very, very, very deeply moved by I would say the connection to the divine and the cosmos, and why my personal way, the way in which I discovered her, was in my deep dive into the divine feminine. I have long been connected to the desire to recover this I want to say empowered perspective of the feminine. Again, looking at what I saw in my mother, it felt like, she was carrying many past lives of being sort of oppressed. You could say, yes, and being seen, she was, we're both super intuitive. So I can only, I can feel the ways that she was identified as heretical or, seen in a way that was disempowering for who she is. And that is we're ready to reclaim that. We're ready to reclaim our voice. I love the work that you are doing when you were speaking about, helping these young people gain their voice. There's nothing more important. And it's just so powerful, the work that you're doing. So thank you for doing this work as a mom to a 10-year-old. I mean, oh, bless you. But ultimately that is just what I think has always been my focus. And so when I studied the divine feminine in all her different forms, and I have worked with them intuitively, and yet it was Inanna that really led to the most profound change within me. It was in my deliberate, concentrated, focused devotion to Inanna that I saw myself finally step into a lived expression of self-love. So I hold her up for this reason, because it worked for me.
Well, and that's kind of, if it works for you, it works. And so the book is all about the story of Inanna. You have some of your stories in there. Give us an idea of what it looks like to live unapologetically.
Oh, brilliant question. Okay. So yes, the book is structured with a little bit of understanding around sort of like why is feminine consciousness and divine feminine perspective useful? Why shall we resurrect this? And then I go into her different mythology and I structure it as gates. And so each chapter is one of the 7 gates, which offers an analogous contemporary struggle like addiction, for example, or working with addiction or body image and self-esteem, alongside her mythology to make it current in the now, and demonstrates with a healing intervention that's offered at the end of the gate, which is a ritual or meditation to help transform and heal that particular center. Each of the gates are related to one of the 7 chakras. So for me, this experience and why I think it's really a useful focus is that it gives us an opportunity to see our lives from the lens of an initiation. It's a very different way. It's basically showing us how to, in essence, see how everything that shows up in our life is really meant to support our spiritual evolution.
Wow.
I want to make sure I answered that question. I might have gotten off track.
Well, it's just, what does it look like to live unapologetic?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me of that piece, because I was so excited about the fact that you asked that question, because to me, unapologetic, it's not a sort of like, it's not like in your face kind of thing. It's truly what occurs when we love ourselves unconditionally and we look at all parts of ourselves and we say, hey, all of you come to the center stage. You deserve to be on center stage and you deserve to stand in your glory. And, it's interesting because many of us have ambivalence about owning our glory for the ways in which we can feel it create discomfort in others. And, working with Inanna has really helped me see that perhaps if we're standing in our glory and someone is uncomfortable by it because they're envious or something, how do we know that there may be a way wherein triggering some of that reaction in the other is perhaps the catalyst that individual needs to follow suit, to step and move into their own self-love. So it's an opportunity for us to just truly, truly honor ourselves. And when we do this, it changes how we interface with the world. This is ultimately so central to her message, because what she's really saying is, she's in alignment with the Hermetic law of as above, so below. So what she's really emphasizing is she's saying, transform internally, harmonize the instrument of your own being to unconditional love, and that will dramatically impact the world, the way in which you interface with the world around you, and change the world. Yeah.
It starts within, and then the projection is all about that too.
That's sort of a reaction to being unapologetically who you are, allowing yourself to be you, and which will then allow you to allow everyone to be who they are. And all of a sudden separation begins to dissolve and we see our interconnection,
So what does that process look like? You obviously work with people, and is this a long drawn out thing to get that person to awaken and come alive, or is it pretty much doesn't take time at all?
This is work that occurs within the quantum field. And in the quantum field, all that's required to shift is a shift in consciousness, which can occur on a dime. So it depends, it's very individual, but it has the potential to be very, very quick, in the sense that if we can move, and we have to, of course, honor our own individual processes, because it takes however it's going to take, and that's part of
what it takes. But it's an inside job, right? It starts inside first, and I think the biggest thing is just unconditional love for oneself, and then the projection is for all.
Absolutely.
Seana, this reminds me so deeply of an experience that I had healing from my own childhood sexual abuse. That I was part of a women's therapy group. There were 15 of us. We'd come together. We'd all had the same common counselor that had gotten us to this one point, and now she'd brought us together to this group therapy. One of the women in this group was Carol, who had 32 different personalities. I think they call it something differently now in psychology, but at that time she had these individuals that would run certain parts of her life because of a tremendously tragic experience she'd had at 3 years old when she split mentally, essentially. And this process you're talking about, Inanna, is reminding me of when Carol had to integrate these 32 personalities into her core self. And I was blessed to be part of that process while she was under hypnosis, and how she described that she had to envision in her mind's eye each of these people that she'd given names to and that had been part of her whole life. She had to approach them, hug them, thank them for their contribution to who she was and the way that they protected her and helped her to heal and cope from this tragic situation. And then she said, I no longer need you. You can,
Wow.
you're truly part of me. And she did that with all 32 of those people. And so this process that you're talking about is a lot like that. And I saw the power of being able to look at every part of ourselves and show gratitude for what that part of us, whether we like it or not, has done to either help us to heal or that has formed who we are. And I think that's really part of the divine feminine, is being able to work through that process with that power in mind and then come out even more powerful than we were going in. So I think that's beautiful. Is there anything within the experience of Inanna's journey that is similar to something like that?
Oh, absolutely. And what a powerful story, and really just so amazing for her to have had the opportunity to be witnessed in this healing as well. Just that witnessing is actually something that's quite central to Inanna's mythology, and that takes place in the descent of Inanna. The witnessing is a powerful experience for us, the witnessing of our self-acceptance and allowing us to be who we are and holding that sacred space. So that actually, there is a whole aspect of the descent of Inanna wherein two beings are sent into the underworld to help restore her to life, and they do just this for her sister. So it's this actually happens for sure. And it's interesting because in the underworld is ruled by her sister, Inanna's sister, named Ereshkigal. And I think of her as her sister self. So as you're describing this, for sure, you can think of these many aspects of self. And there is an integration experience that happens there where Inanna she's dead, and her sister Ereshkigal is lying on the floor, writhing in what looks like labor pains. So there's this contrast of life and death, but it's, to your point, there's these two aspects of self, and they are merging and integrating. So this is absolutely part of her mythology. Absolutely.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm reminded just by that discussion of, there's three people that are affected by anonymous giving, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the person that receives, the person that gives, and most importantly, and the most effective is this person that witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
that just reminded me in that discussion. So in your book, tell us about the gates. Do you have a favorite gate? It's an amazing way you wrote this book. You have the gates of Inanna, and there is some correlation to her story, and you have stories about the gates. Is there a favorite? We don't want to let them all out. We don't want to let all the gates out.
And do you have to go in order, or can you skip around?
You can absolutely skip around. Great question, because she would, like I said earlier about the blurring of lines, she would definitely say, I don't move sequentially. It's whatever resonates with you. So certainly, and I think that's a really important point to make, because wherever is our deepest wounding is where we'll begin the process. So that is different for everybody. And the way that I've structured the gates, they don't move sequentially or neatly from the first, the root chakra to the crown. It's individual, right? And that's by design, because that's much more in line with her. So I would say that my favorite gate really is well, there's so many, but I would say that perhaps my favorite is Gate 2, which is about healing ancestral relationships. And this is the myth. I talk about the myth, Inanna and the God of Wisdom. This is a myth wherein she connects with her grandfather, Enki, who holds they're called the May, M-E, and they are the sacred cultures of the land. His power. And she goes through this process where she is inspired to connect with him and receive. She knows she's meant to receive these gifts, to pass them over to her people, to hand them to her people, because she's an incredible leader. And so I love this myth and the process of doing this for so many reasons, but also from the perspective of recognizing how when we access power, it is powerful to empower another, right? So the opposite of using power for our own self-aggrandizement. And that's an essential point. I think, when we think of the Atlantean times and the rise of the Atlantean civilization, for example, when it was, in its sort of most highly developed expression, we've come to understand sort of collectively that the downfall of Atlantis was through the misuse of power. So I think that today, as we're positioned to move into a new paradigm, I think this is a really important message for us collectively to understand. Let's use our power to empower each other, and to really never use it for our own self-aggrandizement or to have power over another.
Right.
Let's dissolve this and move into supporting one another. So I love that gate.
That's kind of the motto of a shaman, right? A shaman works in the background to help others achieve and to grow, and that's all that they do. So it's interesting how that has come down. Many of the ancient thoughts and ideas, especially from the Assyrians, have been passed down, because I think Inanna shows up as, right, Venus. I think you said that in the Greek mythologies.
Yes, absolutely. And you can think of that sort of alchemist energy, because Enki, her grandfather, is definitely an alchemist, and she's in deep connection with him. So that sort of in between worlds connection that you're describing, and that working behind the scenes sort of way, she is clearly connected to Enki. So there's a way that mythology highlights she has his gift, or they share gifts in a sense,
Right.
So I love that. Yeah.
So then back to the book. After each chapter, you have a meditation and some things to consider. Explain that for us.
Yes, I have a healing intervention that is either a ritual or a meditation, and sometimes both, depending on what's needed. And why I love using ritual is because it's so fast, and it is an art form. So it really is, again, it lends itself to your own interpretation. Make it your own. Yes, I offer.
Here's what I know about rituals: is it anchors an intention, right? Isn't
Absolutely.
Right.
I love that you just highlighted that, because indeed the all that's needed to really make a ritual your own is your intention and your attention, and to align it with the highest good, right? And that's it, and then create it like an art form, create the one that resonates for you. But again, because it's working in we could say the quantum field, all that's needed is a shift in consciousness. So it's quick. It can be super quick. And there's a way where you can just decide, like, from here on, things are forever changed. May it be so, kind of. You really can claim
and
it.
So it is, right?
Yes, exactly.
And you might falter and you might fall back a little bit, but you always have that. You can never go back, right?
Right. Totally.
So let me ask you something that is sort of mechanical kind of question, because I like meditations and I like rituals, but it's hard to read from a book and then do something. So are there recordings or something like that, or do you suggest that we record our own voice talking ourselves through these meditations or rituals? Because that's kind of where I get stuck sometimes is I read it and I really like it, but then of course I can't remember what I just read. So how do I use that meditation without having to keep one eye open to read from the book?
Absolutely. It's great. That's a beautiful question. And absolutely, they are set up for you to be able to do it. Like, certainly you can record the meditation. Most of them are rituals, but with that, there's also a profound opportunity when you do record it, when you do, take your voice memo on your phone and record it. And it's not long, right? Like I said, it's not a super long process. Again, with intention, I did it in this way, because when it's done in your voice, again, why ritual is so powerful is you become the therapist, your own therapist, you become your own healer. So when you literally record it in your own voice, you are literally you are speaking your own healing into being. So it's a very profound way in which to do it. And the way of Inanna is being recorded in audiobook too. So that that's going to be released.
That'll help.
Yeah, that's right. But it lends itself if you kind of glance over it and you get a sense of the ritual, and then you go do it on your own, right? That is making it your own as well, right? Like, so if you just read it and you're like, I think I remember most of the steps, it doesn't matter. Now you have internalized it and has become your own. So.
Well, that's awesome. That's great. And so, who is this book for? Who really needs to read this book and delve themselves deeply into it?
Beautiful question. Truly, it's for anyone who is ready to move into a higher level of consciousness and reclaim their own power. And certainly, there is a way in which it supports the process of reclaiming feminine consciousness. And again, this doesn't just mean that it's therefore oriented towards the feminine. It's oriented towards anyone who is desiring to experience a empowered relationship with their feminine aspect. And ultimately, as we move up the tree of life, we have to come into balance. And so this is part of anyone's process who is desiring to ascend,
Well, I think for me, the most powerful. So I experienced these things in my life that brought me closer to the divine feminine and my own feminine nature, because it is part of all of us, right? One is more prominent than the other, but we all have both masculine and the feminine in us as a part of us. And I think what really anchored it for me is I read something that talked about Sophia. And that's the feminine side of God, really. As I think it's the ancient Jewish traditions believe, and they didn't really get a good sense of spirituality. A man didn't get a good sense of his spirituality until he discovered who Sophia was.
I love that. I love this reconciling, bringing these two aspects into alignment as being part of the process. Absolutely.
Yeah, that really anchored it for me. And I don't know where it came from. Maybe I misquoted some things, but that was the understanding for me, right? Like you talked about, this is what was important for me to understand in order to come to understand who I am.
Beautiful. I love that.
And so delving into that a little bit deeper then, is the goddess Inanna possibly Eve? Of Adam and Eve fame? Is there a correlation to the Garden of Eden? Because what I've perused from your book is that there are a lot of representations between man and nature, which was definitely there in the Garden of Eden story. So how does that all correlate together?
You are asking a brilliant question, because absolutely you can see that overlap and even the way in which Eve was vilified, right? This and certainly this is what Inanna is pushing back against. There are a lot of overlaps with her. She sometimes is depicted. Well, there's a lot of in her different forms as Ishtar with the snake. So we have that correlation. She has the symbolism of the apple tree in her mythology. Cool. So again, biting from the fruit of. So and going to the garden. So with her lover, Dumuzi, her beloved, there is a big emphasis on, especially the apple tree. And then there's a story called the Hulupu tree, which is like the tree of life. So there's a lot of overlap for sure. And I love that you can see that correlation for sure. And I think that what is beautiful is that it's time to release the conditioning or the let's say the misconceptions that were put upon the divine feminine and reclaim. So to do that with Eve, to do that with Mary Magdalene, to do that with Inanna, to do that with all expressions of the divine feminine and say, who were you really? And what was your true message? Let's give you a chance to find your voice like you do in your work and speak the truth. And that's really what I'm hoping to do with this book.
What a great way to wrap it up. That put a nice little bow on top of it.
Yeah, because it's nice that the Bible, even the Old and New Testament, is very patriarchal, right? It's really based on the lives of men. Yes. There's a few women mentioned here, and when they are mentioned, they're priestesses, things like that. And so it's nice to have maybe the other side of that story that might be happening in the same time frame with the same types of people and civilizations, and be able to say, all right, I can see now from both sides how they're both needed. One has been misrepresented or underrepresented for a very long time, and so
or oppressed. I think oppressed would be the good word. Yeah,
absolutely.
For oppressed for political or for control, right?
Well, it's possible too for protection. I mean, because we know that the divine feminine is an important part of the whole story, but because we also know it can be taken advantage of, it can be skewed, it can be tragically abused, then perhaps there was a protective aspect of it too that's been kept hidden for long enough that until we're ready to hear it.
Yeah, awesome. Good point.
And are we ever ready to hear it?
Absolutely. I am woman, hear me roar, right?
Yes, 1000%.
Well, and I think more and more archaeologists are revealing things. There's some amazing things. I mean, underneath the Temple of Isis right now, they may have found Cleopatra. Wouldn't that be amazing? And I know, wouldn't that? I spent some time in Egypt and know that Temple of Isis, truly a full moon. And all you could hear was millions of frogs. I mean, we watched the moon and the sun come up. It was just, talk about being moved somewhere. Oh my goodness, ladies, it looks like we have 4 minutes left. And is there a last minute message, Seana, that you might have that you would want to relay to our listeners?
And tell people how to get a hold of you if they want.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'll just show my book, The Way of Inanna. A Heroine's Guide to Living Unapologetically, available at booksellers worldwide. My website is seanazelazo.com. And the message I would like to leave you all with is to give yourself permission to evolve, be who you are, and use the discernment of your third eye to allow yourself to honor your truth. And as you do this, you will give permission to others to do the same.
Live unapologetically.
You've got a podcast starting. Tell us about your podcast and how can we listen to your guests and your interviews?
Yes, absolutely. So that's going to launch in December, and it will be on all of the traditional Spotify and such, but it'll be through the platform of Sacred Stories. And I will have that information on my website and certainly promote that. And I really am looking forward to the guests and the opportunity to connect and share their brilliant wisdom with the world as well, and how they align with Inanna's message.
It's a lot of fun. Jackie and I just have a blast every week. You will too. Did you have a blast today? I so enjoyed it. I had
such a blast. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool stuff. Well, that's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. My biggest hope is that I would hope you would tell a friend about the show and how cool it is. And these two people, Todd and Jackie, just have some amazing guests with some amazing thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. Jackie, any epiphanies today? Did Did it spark more curiosity? I could see
Yeah,
I
sure.
could see your brain
Yeah,
almost just going.
absolutely. I definitely want to delve a little deeper into it and find connections with some other knowledge that I have and things that I already know. And
Yeah,
put them
totally.
together. That's the fun part, right?
Shauna, I hope you come back because there is so much more I think that we could have a discussion about and talk about and dive a little deeper. And yeah, so put it on
I
your
would love
radar. You might just get another invite.
Yeah.
I would be so honored. Thank you both so much.
Namaste, my friends. You keep rocking the world because you're going places.
Thank you.
That's about, like I said, all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Lastly, please, please, please do me a favor and make it a great day because it is all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.